everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's science talk. My name is Dr. Miriam Axel. I'm delighted to be your host today. For those of you who are new to science talks, we're delighted to have you here with us. You can watch the entire 2024 series as well as the 2025 series on our YouTube channel and on our website at unu.edu/INWEH/science-talks with an S at the end. Today's talk, like all of our others, will be recorded, and the recording will be made available after the session. And we'll conclude with an interactive Q&A session. So please use the Q&A box to put your questions for our speaker, and I will read them out to our speaker. The topic of today's talk is Weed 4.0, Ecotech Solutions Blending Biology, AI, and Precision Agriculture. Our speaker is Professor Mohsen Mesgaran, who's the lead for ecological modeling and food security at UNU-INWEH and a professor of plant sciences at UC Davis. As an agroecologist and a modeler, Professor Mesgaran works at the intersection of agriculture, ecology, and technology using quantitative tools such as statistical models, crop growth models, and machine learning. His research aims to make agroecosystems a more sustainable and reduce the environmental impact of agriculture by combining plant biology, agronomy, and advanced modeling to develop ecotech solutions, some of which we'll hear about today. At UNU-INWEH, he leads research on ecological modeling and food security, applying AI, remote sensing, and ecological analytics to tackle challenges such as invasive species, climate impacts, and water management. His work bridges science and practice to support sustainable agriculture, resilient ecosystems, and global food security. So please do put your questions in at any point in the Q&A box. And now I'm delighted to turn it over to you, Professor Mesgaran.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for introduction, and also thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here and present my work on weeds, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you. So let me share my screen. Okay. So can you see my screen? Everything is working?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'll be talking about weeds and some technologies that we are using for understanding weeds, and it's related to the science of weeds and also for managing weeds. And but before that, I want to just give you an overview of what I will be presenting. So I'll start with kind of introduction to weeds and weed 0.4, as some people may come from different background, and so I'll provide some background information about weeds. Then I'll go to reproductive biology and show how some understanding of the biology of weeds can help with management towards that sustainable and ecological ways of managing weeds. And then I'll provide an example of my own research on using Google Street View to map weeds. And then I'll show you some videos mainly of some technologies currently available for smart weeding and precision weeding. So I'll start with definition. Sometimes we think it's we know what weeds are, and in like many other concepts in ecology, still people are struggling to define things. So these are some definitions. I'm not going to go through all these definitions. And people, WSSA, Weed Science Society of America, it has provided several definitions, but I still prefer this one suggested in 1961, a plant that grows where it's not wanted. So if you have a small backyard, flowers or some vegetables, whatever the plant that you don't want it to be there, for me, it's a weed. It doesn't matter if it has a beautiful flower or it has beautiful aroma, whatever. As long as you don't want it, that's a weed. If you're growing wheat and you have barley in your crop, barley is a weed. So that's I think, a very simple and pragmatic definition. And it's, as you can see in the definitions, it's a very human-centered definition. Without human, no plant is considered as a weed or a pest. It's just because of human. Even though in this definition by WSSA, animals are included, but I don't agree with them, honestly. So, and weeds, they are very interesting, actually, organisms. You find them everywhere. They have this very wide environmental kind of tolerance, or adapted to a wide range of environments, and they can thrive and survive. And in the field crops, we have them in orchards, in natural settings. You have them along the roads that they can actually reduce the visibility. And so we spray, actually, in roadside. A lot of herbicides are applied just to control weeds along the roads. We have them in water bodies, lake, rivers, and in urban areas. They can even sometimes destroy some constructions. We have in historical monuments, which is very critical places, and they can also damage those parts. And sometimes you see them in very strange places, growing on trees and some really weird places. So they have this high adaptability to thrive in every place that you go. And why they are important? It's the damage that they make in particular in ag system and cropping systems. So this is based on a very thorough study done in 2016. It's a huge book analyzing thousands and thousands of papers and data sets, and at the global scale. And they came up with this kind of data showing that the potential damage from weeds to crops is way more than any other type of pest. So here is the red color. The red bar shows the potential damage for weeds from weeds in 3 major crops: wheat, maize, and soybean. And you see the weeds that they can damage crop more than any other pest that we know: animal pests, pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and so on. So that's a big deal. And some people have estimated they cost the US $35 billion, but this is, believe me, it's a huge underestimate, and it's old. I'm not aware of any new study. It was done 20 years ago, and but a recent market analysis, they found the expenditure on herbicide is about $43 billion and some people even estimated if we don't control weeds in corn, the annual loss is going to be about 26 billion. And in soybean, it's about $15 billion. So it's huge cost if we don't do anything about weeds. They are the #1 constraints on the growth of organic farming. So if you go and ask organic farmers, what's your #1 problem? That's the weed, because we don't have that many tools to control weeds, and they are really difficult to control. And if we look at the trend in the use of herbicides and compare it with other types of pesticides, so you can see back in the time in 1960, it was not that much of herbicide being used, and one reason is that we didn't have that many herbicide to use, and because the discovery of herbicide is actually very difficult. It's even more difficult than drugs that that they're producing for human, because you need to kill a plant and distinguish that plant from your crop. It's very different than killing an insect, which is totally different from a crop. So discovery of insecticides and other pesticides is easier compared to herbicide. So we have, for example, herbicide that can kill grasses in wheat, which is really remarkable. And you can see about 70 herbicide accounts about 76% of the pesticide use in the US across these 21 major crops in the US. And 99% of corn and soybean acreage in the US, they get treated, sprayed with herbicide. So huge amount of herbicide. This is an example of glyphosate. You can see this shows the amount in pounds per square mile. So this is this is in 1992, and now that's the situation in 2019. The data hasn't been updated, so there is a delay, but this is the situation we're dealing, and leading to all sort of environmental health issues because of the overuse. And I don't know, you might be aware of this issue with the glyphosate that the judges in California, they find Bayer and billions of dollars for the cancer, for some cancer-related issues with the glyphosate. This is the most widely used herbicide in the world. The market is about $10 billion. Just this single herbicide accounts for most of the herbicide used in the world. So we don't want to go with this pathway, just using herbicide and chemicals to control weeds. We know weeds are, the herbicide is a great tool for weed control, but that's not the only tool. The problem with the current weed management system is that it's completely relies on using herbicide, and not the best way actually. So we are witnessing the fourth revolution in industry. The very first one started with the using steam power, and then we had these assemblies, and then computers, and these kind of revolutions happen almost after every century. But now we're witnessing the fourth revolution. People are talking industry 4.0 to refer to this the fourth revolution, which is a merger of physical and cyber things. So we are putting arms and brains together. So the machines, they do the thinking, and they also do the physical work. That's what is happening. And agriculture, this has also been playing a crucial role now. A lot is happening in this area with the digital ag or precision ag. And I believe it's the adaptation of these new technologies is very much for weed control. We are way better than other disciplines. And I'll show you some examples. I went to an exhibition a couple of months ago, providing, showing all these different new technologies and precision things. About 60% of the machineries that they were presenting, they were about weeds, how to control weeds, how to use this AI and robotics and machine vision to control weeds. So that's the reason I say a lot is happening actually just for weeds, and I call it Weed 4.0 in the wake of Industry 4.0. And what are these three, sensing, data analytics, and actuation? These are the pillars of what I call it Weed 4.0 or precision ag. And sensing refers how we collect data. We are using a huge number of sensors and tools to collect data from the field. And now with the computers that we have, and also the AI technology, we can make sense of these data and convert them to information. And get insight from the raw data and make insight. And sometimes we may stop here. So we have sensing, and then we have data analytics, and that's enough for some work. For example, if you want to make a decision about when to irrigate your field, or when you're going to spray your field, you may just use this part without going to actuation, and which is the physical work. If you have, for example, a system that also operates the irrigation, then we have the actuation part as well. But we don't need to have all three together in a precision ag. And I mentioned we are collecting data and sensing data in the environment in many ways. So these are some examples. UAVs, drones, we use a lot now in agriculture. There is a kind of fever for that, but I should mention that it's kind of overrated. Whenever you're gonna use them, you have all sorts of issues. It sometimes doesn't work. It's windy. The battery it only lasts for 30 minutes. So if you want to do large acreage, you can't do that. Satellites now are becoming more common. I'll show you an example. The good thing is the coverage, and now we have these very high resolution satellites. I'm in a project that I'm doing. We use 15 centimeter resolution images and for detection of weeds. These were not available in the past 5 years ago. This is very recent. And we have different probes: soil moisture, temperature, EC, sensors that we plug into the soil. And we have even mobile sensor. I'll show you an example in a minute how they work. And weather stations, the good thing is they're becoming much better and better. So we can use them to make, for example, the crop growth models that we have. We can use this weather data to forecast the crop growth and other things. And so there are some really good databases. For example, we have Soil Grid that provides information on soil properties at the 250-meter resolution across the world, and I used it. It's really good. I tested it on a couple of places that I had the actual soil properties. They match very well. And using the Raspberry Pis and these mobiles for all sort of data collection, especially image collection. I'll show you an example in a minute as well. And Google Street View. This is another thing I'm using it for mapping weeds along the roads. And again, I'll show you in my slides today. So this is an example of mobile sensor that I want to mention. This is in Australia, Sydney. So this is an autonomous robot, solar powered. And it has this probe, as you can see here. It has this probe that goes into the soil, collect some data, and gives you a map, a kind of a special map of like soil moisture, temperature, and conductivity, EC. So in terms of the imagery, the type of cameras or sensors, we use different types. RGB, red, green, blue is the most common one. Easy to put them on a drone and take images. We have multispectrals as well that provides more information, like in near infrared, infrared information. So if you want to calculate NDVI, some other parameters. Hyperspectral they provide lots of information. It can range from 400 nanometer to 2000 nanometer and gives you with the spectral band resolution of 1 or 3 nanometer. And we've been able to use this sensor for all sorts of things, even, for example, to tell if a seed will germinate or not. So we took images of a dry seed with this hyperspectral image, and then we can tell if this seed is able to germinate or not, which is not possible actually with the other cameras. And the issue with them, though, is that they are not very consistent, especially if you want to use them outdoor. You don't have that sort of consistency because of the lighting conditions and the calibration. And there is this other type, stereo cameras. I'll call it RGBD, and D refers to the depth. So not only it gives the color, but also the distance from the object. And this is a good piece of information, especially for weed detection. This is a camera that I've used it and in one of my studies. So we created this one, as I mentioned, Raspberry Pi. With this camera, we installed it on this drone and used it in a tomato field. So You can see this red boxes. They show the weed called field bindweed. This is a very difficult to control weed in tomato and orchards, but it has a kind of prostrate. We call it prostrate growth form. It's just kind of lay on the ground. It doesn't have height. So we can use this camera, which gives us the height of the plants, and then so you see this the segmented picture below shows the location of weed without using any other information, without using even the RGB images, just based on the height. And the hypothesis here is that the crop is usually uniform. So the height of the crop is all plants, they almost have the same height. So if you see a plant that is not has a very different height, then it can be a weed. So we wanted to see if adding this piece of information would increase our accuracy of detecting weeds. And now I'm switching gears to the ecology and biology. I want to provide you an example how understanding the ecology of weeds can help with the management. This is a type of things that sometimes when you do it, especially in a field, in my field, which is very applied, people are very applied, and they would say this is a kind of useless science. I've always get this sort of look that, what kind of, use you can make out of this in terms of managing weeds. But I'm going to show you how useful it is. This picture is a weed called Palmer amaranth. This is the #1 weed in the U.S. in corn and soybean. The worst weed. It has evolved resistant to many herbicides, and it's very difficult to control. And one of the interesting thing about this weed is that it's what we call it dioecious. So about 75% of weeds, plants, not weeds, plants, they are what we call hermaphrodite. So one individual plant or flower has both male and female organs. But this plant is like animals, like human. It has female individuals and male individuals. So it's just like and again, we call it dioecious in botanical terms, it's dioecious. So this is a perfect flower. So these are different components of flowers. So I'm providing some background for people that they may not have a background in plant sciences. So this is a perfect flower. So we have the female part here, with stigma, style, and ovary. We call it carpel. Then we have these filament and anther. This is called a stamen. This is the male part of the flower. And these are just cosmetics, sepal and petal. So, and this is called a perfect flower or hermaphrodite flower. So you have both male and female parts on the single flower. But we have flowers that they have only the female part or they have only the male part. And then we have plants that can carry, for example, the male flowers and female flowers on different branches, like corn. So in corn, we have the male flowers on the top and the female flowers on the lateral. And depending on this, how this flowers, the plant is carrying this, what type of these flowers they're carrying, we get different, all sort of arrangement. And the species I mentioned, some individuals, they have only female, and some individuals, they have only male. And another example is palm, a date palm. And it's interesting that the people in the 3000 BC, they knew about it, and they knew about this, the male and female, and they knew that they need to do pollination to get production, to get the fruit. And you can see kind of Apple Watch here, this basket that they put the cones of the male, and then they go and pollinate the female. So it's an old thing. But how we can use this information, okay? How this information about the biology can be used. One strategy is a shift in sex ratio. So if we have a population of male and females, So if we can convert them all to male or all to female, then the plant would not be able to produce seed. So, for example, if we have all men or only women in our population, we wouldn't be able to reproduce. The same technique. But it's not only like that you should have 100% male or 100% female to, stop a weed to produce seeds. Even if you change the sex ratio, make it very biased, either a lot of male or a lot of female, you can still reduce the seed production because usually the optimal is about 50-50. There are all sorts of evolutionary reasons why it should be 50-50. The other thing is, when you have two plants, male and female, they need to go to flowering at the same time. If males go to flowering today and females next week, they won't be able to cross-pollinate and produce seed. So is there a way that we can separate them so they don't flower at the same time? So this is another strategy we can use. And the other one is what we call it straw pollen technique, which I'll go through it in a minute. So I want to mention the advantages and disadvantages of this type of breeding system. I mean, having male and female separately. So the advantage is that it maximizes outcrossing. And outcrossing is important because it increases genetic diversity. If they closely related individuals, they breed, they pollinate each other, you get something, we call it inbreeding depression. The fitness of the plant will decline. So we want to, plants, they want to increase the genetic diversity. It's particularly important for weeds because it needs to cope with different environments. And another thing is this division of labor. So when you have an individual specialized in male function and individual specialized in female functions, these two functions would not compete with each other. So if you go to the greenhouse that I work and I had male and females, you'll see the male plants, they are producing huge amount of pollen. The whole plant would get yellow. It's just covered with pollen. And this is that sort of productivity in pollen production can only be achieved if you're only male. If you're hermaphrodite, you won't be able to produce that huge amount of pollen. And this would the same applies to the female. They won't be able to produce eggs, that huge number of eggs. One individual plant, female plant, in this species, Palmera, can produce up to 1 million seeds, 1 million seeds. But there are some disadvantages associated with this dioecious. First, you need to have male and female in the same location. And this also, if the sex ratio is biased, there would be a decline in seed production. They need to flower at the same time. I mentioned this. The other thing is half the population is useless, men, as is always the case. So they won't produce seed. And then the seed dispersal is also only done by half the population. Females are in charge of dispersing the seed, and seed dispersal is a critical thing for plants. They need to disperse their seed to be able to colonize. So these are some things that I call it evolutionary cracks in this breeding system, which we can exploit them for weed management. So this is related to the sex ratio things that I mentioned. So if we have no males, there is no, so on the y-axis is the fecundity or seed production at the population level, and here is the sex ratio. So if we have no male, no seed will be produced. If we have no female, no seed will be produced. And so usually the optimal sex ratio is about the 50-50% in the natural settings. Not if, I know people are working in pistachio, the ratio is 1:14 or something like that. So you have 1 male and 14 female, but that's the agricultural system. In natural system, it should be close to 50-50. Because if you go, you have a lot of females, then you won't be able, you won't have enough pollen. If you have a lot of males, then you won't have enough ovules, eggs, to produce seed. Okay, I'll skip this one. But the question is, can we change sex ratio? Can we convert male to females or females to male? Yes, this is possible in plants and even in some animals. These are some examples of the environmental factors that they change the sex. So, for example, water stress. If you have water stress, you get more males. So if you have a crop like spinach is also dioecious, and that it's also since you can change sex in a spinach very easily. So if you stress them, you get more males. This has been the case in almost any species that I'm aware of. Light intensity and some growth regulators like auxin, these are plant hormones, they can also change sex. So, and I tried kind of all these hormones, plant growth regulators, to see if I can change sex in this Palmer amaranth. I wasn't successful. I wasn't able to change sex of the plant using these hormones, which would make it much easier as a weed control method. But I tried water stress, and to see, because this has been the case that in most cases it turns plants to male. And I grow plants 200 under normal irrigation and 200 under water stress. So they only receive 30% of irrigation of the normal plants. And I had two populations. I had seeds collected from Kansas and I had seeds collected from California. And I tested this plants to see if I see a change in the sex ratio. And so this is the water stress, and this is the control, and this is the population from California, and this is population from Kansas. I didn't see any statistical differences in sex ratio in California population, but for Kansas population, I got actually more females under water stress, 64% female and 36 male. And so it's exactly the opposite of the literature. I mentioned in 11 studies, 11 species that they kind of tested water stress, they all got more males. But in my example, I got more females. I did some follow-up study looking using electron microscopy to look at the development of flowers and so on. And I realized the males, they have the capacity to turn sex, to change sex, not the females. And that's one of the reasons. So the second strategy, as I mentioned, is this synchronizing flowering time. So, and this is kind of my hypothesis. So starting here, so you suppose that you have a huge overlap in timing of flowering. Male and females, they flower at the same time. So they're going to produce a lot of seeds. But as you increase the distance between male and females, the seed production is going to decline. This is what was my expectation. This was something I wanted to test. I did a modeling to test this, and I got some good results. But the question is, how are you going to do that? How you desynchronize flowering? And this was exactly with water stress. So when you have normal irrigation, so this is, at the top is normal irrigation. This is the frequency distribution of flowering. So this is time to anthesis, it's time to flowering. You can consider the time to flowering. So here, the median between male and female in terms of timing of flowering is only 2 days. So males go to flowering 2 days later compared to the females. But if you stress plants, if they are under water stress, this 2 days will increase to 7 days. And 5 days is huge because pollen is only can stay alive for few hours. After few hours, they will die. So so you can reduce seed production by water stress. I know you may say, okay, but if we do water stress, the crops will also damage. You know, you're gonna get yield loss because of the water stress. But we have a technique called water irrigation deficit technique. It's been used in almond in California to reduce the amount of water used in almonds. So people reduce the amount of water at a specific time. This will not result in yield reduction. You save some water without losing yield. And so this technique would provide additional benefit of reducing the flowering overlap in this particular weeds and perhaps in other weeds, dioecious weed. And the same also happened with the other population. Again, we had 2 days difference between under normal condition and 7 days under water stress. So this is the third technique, straw pollen technique. It's similar to the mosquitoes, sterilizing mosquitoes. The UN has been, involved in this kind of technique, control of mosquitoes. So what they do in mosquitoes, they mass rear mosquitoes, male mosquitoes. They irradiate them with X-ray or gamma radiation. So they don't kill the males, but they become infertile. And then they mass release them. So these sterile male, they go and outcompete the fertile males. So this is the technique. And I use exactly the same technique in this case for weed control. So this is the male plant. You see it's covered with pollen. It produces huge amount of pollen. These yellow things you see, these are pollen. So we collect pollen from the males, and we use X-ray radiation to sterilize this pollen. We don't kill pollen. The pollen is still alive. It can germinate. It can germinate on the female flower, but it won't produce seed. It will outcompete fertile pollen, and prevent seed production. The thing is, pollen is very little. You can't use it directly on plant. So you need to mix it with some inert material and then apply it. And for application, we can even use drones. So this is the study we did, not with the drone. This is the study we tried to test the technique, if it's gonna reduce seed production. So we had all different types, for example, tested different doses of irradiation. That was a critical thing, to find the right dose that would not kill the pollen, but the pollen is just infertile. And we find that at 300 GY, this is the sweet spot that we can get just the right pollen and reduce the seed production. So you can see here it's 0 seed production if you only apply the irradiated pollen. But if irradiated pollen is followed by fertile pollen, you still get some seed production. But overall, we could reduce seed production up to 80% in some cases. And this is we also tested different inert materials like wheat flour and talc powder, baby powder. We mixed these at different ratios of irradiated pollen. And you can see at around 25%, so 75% wheat flour and 25% pollen, we get a kind of a good result in terms of reducing the seed production. And this is the robot we tried, the drone we tried to build to release pollen. Yeah, we went through all different designs. Yeah, so and it won it's one of the finalists in the NASA Agri Solution competition, and it's still we're working on this Robo Bee. We call it Robo Bee, and to optimize it, it was done by some undergrads, and that's a project in progress. Now I want to talk about the AI part. So this is the I told you I'm proud of the wheat science in terms of adopting technology and AI. This is the kind of the literature, what the literature says about the use of deep learning and weeds. You can see the weed account for almost 13% of the literature on the use of deep learning compared to whole agriculture. And wheat science is a very narrow discipline, still accounting for a large number of these papers. And people have used machine learning, deep learning for all different type of things. Wheat crop classification is the main one. Even determining wheat density, how many weeds you have in the field, going even further and doing the semantic segmentation, even weed growth. These are some examples. But something I did is to use combine these deep learnings with Google Street View and call it Google Weed View. So Google covers 10 million miles of streets across the world. And they're using all sorts of machines and devices to take images of even inside buildings, even, Canada, they do this in Canada for things. But the thing is, you can see weeds along the roads. This is Johnson grass, a very bad weed. This is field vine weed. So a colleague of mine wanted to do a survey of this weed, Johnson grass, in California, and asked me to do it. Then I said, I'm going to do it a different way. Rather than using a car and driving and, then spotting and using GPS, I'm going to use Google Street. So these are the, and I did, not only I did it for California, but also for Oregon, Washington, and Nevada. So along 84,000 miles of roads, we collected images using Google Street API at every 500 meter, about 320,000, but not all of them returned images. We had about 270 images, 270,000 images. And you can see here some images we got from Google Street View, and these are the roads, all the roads that we covered. So we drop this kind of send these locations to Google Street and then to get images. The trick here is that we want the images to be oriented perpendicular to the road direction. So because Google, when it returns images, it can be in all different angles. We want something like this 90-degree relative to the direction of the road. And it was a little bit tricky to get this right, but we did it. And initially, one of my students, he watched about 20,000 images to find 1,000 images with this particular weed that we were interested in, and to label them and create these bounding boxes. And then we trained a model using YOLO. And so you can see this is a test. And my student, he missed this one, but the model was able to pick it up. And although sometimes it's find some other weeds as the Johnson grass, these are wrong. But so this is the map showing the location. We collected the points, and this is the map showing the location of these particular weed. We call it Johnson grass. The red dot shows the location. So here is the comparison. This part is interesting. So if we want to do a car survey, it would have cost us $45,000, and there are also risk of accident and so on. And it doesn't include the salary of people working on it, okay? And if you use Google with View, it only costs about $2,000. That's the money you pay for the images. And I should say that over the past century, we have collected about 4,000 records of this particular weed across US. So over the 100 years, we know 4,000 locations. And in a matter of months, we collected 2,000 additional points across these 4 states. And I'm now going to apply this model and create a map of these weed across the whole US. So this is an example of using satellite and drones for weed detection. So this is drone. This is drone image. This is a satellite image, a very high resolution, 50 centimeter. This cotton field. We use drones to take images of 800 acres of cotton field at 3 different times during the growing season, and train an AI model to detect weeds. And we have achieved about 80% accuracy. And you can see here is the field. The red dots, they show the location of weeds in the field. And it's less than 10% of the field. So you don't need to spray these parts. So 90% of the field doesn't need to be sprayed. You only need to spray. And in this particular fields, most of the weeds are at the edges of the edges. So you don't even to bring the tractors inside the field, which can damage the crop, soil compaction, and so on. So that's the sort of saving you can achieve if by a spot spraying rather than going and entirely spraying the whole field. This is still a project in ongoing project. We're not done with that. I'm going to collect more data this year. And now I'm going to the actuation part. So we have the current technologies. Some of them are semi-autonomous, some of them are autonomous. And semi-autonomous, I mean, they are tractor-towed. Some of these technologies, they can detect only the green tissues. Some of them, they can distinguish wheat from the crop. And in terms of how they kill the weeds, some of them, they spray. So when they see wheat, they spray it. Some of them mechanically or physically remove them. And here are some examples. This is a semi-autonomous huge tractor. This one is only spray the green stuff. It doesn't distinguish the crop from wheat. And it's huge. It's only almost a field pitch, the size of a field pitch. Oh, I think I put the wrong video. Sorry, it should move. Oh, okay. So this is another one. Solar power.
We can run on roads. One common question that we get where on the other side, fuel tanks. That's the system.
This is a autonomous one. This is a interesting one. They use this machine gun. This is not AI or anything. It's human, but it's interesting. They use this machine gun to this is in Hawaii. They find a weed and they shoot it. So there is a bullet. The bullet contains herbicides in it. So when they shoot it, there's kind of a spread on the plant. This one is the very recent technology. It
In
uses
modern
lasers.
agriculture, efficiency and precision are paramount. Introducing Laser Weeder by Carbon Robotics, equipped with high-performance NVIDIA GPUs for artificial intelligence, power to process 4.7 million images per hour, 30 CO2 lasers, each emitting 150 watts of power, target weeds at a rate of 5,000 per minute. Sub-millimeter accuracy allows it to work seamlessly on over 100 crops. LED lighting arrays 4 times brighter than the sun. The laser weeder delivers unmatched efficiency. It operates day and night, 24/7, ensuring continuous weed management. Significantly reduce labor and herbicide costs.
So this is electric weeder. This one uses electricity. And this one is very interesting. Yeah, the issue with this one is that it won't work. The guy who was kind of invented this one talked to me over the phone from the UK. He said he wants to use it in corn, and I told him, "Do you know how tall corn is? It's taller than me. It's 2 meters. You can't use this one in corn." So here is the comparison between discovery of a herbicide. It cost about $300 million to create one herbicide and commercialize it. But for automation, the average costs about 12 million. The issue is that with the automation, patenting and is difficult, so people can go and copy things. But herbicides, they have this protection, kind of protection. So the future, so current, the current weed management is using lowercase AI, and with lowercase AI, I mean active ingredient, and active ingredient means herbicide. So this is the what you see on the label of herbicide. With the future of weed management should be using the capitalized AI, because weeds, whatever you do, they adopt. You do the cultivation, they adopt. You do herbicide, they adopt. So you need to have smart ways and a diversity in your weed management to prevent this development of resistant, whatever techniques you'll be using. And with that, I thank you all, and thank you the people that have been part of all this journey with me. Thank you. And I'm done. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Professor Mesgaran.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
That was really, really cool. I think the diversity of technologies and how they work. I'm just wondering about the Google Street View. What's the next step? I mean, you mentioned some of the challenges with accurately reading the images. Do you think there's an opportunity for like a global, weed watch, or what are the next steps for this?
That's a good question. So if I can get funding, I'm going to make it a kind of tool that you go and select a particular plant, not only weeds, and it will automatically uses data, for example, from even iNaturalist and PlantNet and some other apps that can train a model, and then it goes and you define the location. You want to use, for example, this particular region. It will automatically retrieve images from Google and then detect that weeds for you. Another project we're doing right now, we're gonna do it, is comparing the native population of a weed and invasive populations. So a good example is sunflower, wild sunflower. It's native in the US and southern US and Mexico, but it's invasive in Europe and other parts of the world. And we want to compare the populations, for example, the number of flowers or the size of flower heads, how evolution has worked. Has there been any changes, adaptive changes, evolutionary changes in the populations growing in Europe compared to ones in the US? So this sort of comparison we can do now just using the images. Yeah, so we're gonna do it. The next step for this project is to do it for the whole US. And once we have these locations, we can ask all sorts of other questions. Make, for example, what we call it a species distribution models that you use climate data. You use climate data to find a relationship between presence, absence of this species and climate. And then you have a climate model, a niche model, and you can look how climate change would affect the distribution of these weeds. Is it going to expand, become a worse problem, or no? It's going to, the habitat is going to shrink. If you're dealing with some rare species, then you can see how climate change is affecting. Because the issue with a lot of these this type of analysis is the lack of data. We don't have distribution data for a lot of species. So with this one, we can use, it's biased toward the roadsides, but still you get some data.
Thank you. We have a question in the chat from Nargis. She says, thank you, Dr. Mesgaran, for your insightful presentation. I learned a lot. Considering the convergence of AI, biotechnology, and precision agriculture in Weed 4.0, what major ethical and environmental challenges do you foresee at a larger scale?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, this is I usually get this kind of criticism that all this technology that we're working, AI, these robots, it's only affordable by rich and big companies or growers, like the laser machine that it costs $1.5 million, one piece. So and it can only be afforded by companies or rich growers. So what about these smallholders or in other countries that they don't have these tools? And one reason I'm trying to use satellite instead of drone and other technologies is to create a very inexpensive method of mapping weeds, because satellite imagery is compared to drones. For each acre, you need to pay about $20, above $20 to do the mapping. But with satellite, the technology we're developing, it may cost you, for the image, it's only 20 cents per acre, 20 cents. So we're going to reduce the cost so they can use it. And yeah, it's unfortunate that the smallholders, they don't have that many technologies. So maybe the co-op, I have a colleague is into co-op and trying to make a different business model so that these you can rent them. So you can rent these devices to them, or a group of growers, they can buy one piece and then use them. That's an issue. Yes, that's an ongoing issue with that.
Thank you so much. I think unfortunately we're out of time for more questions, but this is really fantastic presentation. We're looking forward to having you back, and I'll pass it over to you.
Just because we're over time, yeah, just to say thank you, Hassan. Wonderful as always. I learned a lot, and it's very exciting. I hope you get I think do some more like separate videos for instructions and teaching. And ensuring that the member states and the larger stakeholders out there can have access to the tools that you have developed, and UNU can make sure that there is a great reach. So we can separately discuss that. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
I look forward to visiting you soon.
Yes.
Take care.
Yeah. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.